Hello, everyone, and welcome to the educator webinar for the Nebraska Birding Bowl. My name is Brady Karg. I am the Senior Education Coordinator at Spring Creek Prairie Audubon Center, which is a part of the Audubon Great Plains. We are one of the partners for the Nebraska Birding Bowl. I'm super excited to be here with you for this webinar today. So this webinar is going to focus on the fledgling flock category and how educators, school groups, families can use the birding bowl as an education tool, and also kind of dive into the basics of birding and how birding can be informative and educational. All right. So first things first, what is the Birding Bowl? The Birding Bowl is a free and fun event for all ages and skill levels to participate in. We will dive right in. All right. So this is just a fun little graphic that kind of goes through the entirety of the birding bowl. So first step, you can go ahead and scan that QR code. It'll take you to the website where you can see all of the information, all the different categories, all the steps you need to take, and also some great resources that you can use. So the Nebraska Birding Bowl happens from May 1st through the 31st during Nebraska Bird Month. And registration is live right now from April until the end of the birding bowl. Step number 2 is you're going to want to choose your group or individual team name, make it fun, have fun with it. We've seen some incredible team names through the years. And then step number 3 is you're going to choose your category. There are 4 different categories. There's the fledgling flock for youth and family groups, and that's what this webinar is going to be focused on. But there's also the backyard birder, which is mainly for households, the dabbling birder, which is for the beginner or casual birder, and then the competitive birder. And that is for the intermediate to advanced birder. All right, and then step number 4 is you're going to register. Please note that even in the fledgling flock, you must have an adult register a team and complete the registration form. There are some great prizes. For the fledgling flock, you can win an amazing birding kit that has lots of great supplies. And then step number 5, you're going to go birding. So between the dates of May 1st and 31st, you're going to go try and see as many cool birds as you can. And that is the basics of the birding bowl. All right, so we'll dive into a little bit more about the fledgling flock. Again, it's for youth groups, so K through 12 or families. And all you need to do for it is adults submit a list of birds seen, and youth can create artwork or write about bird seen. We've had some incredible submissions through the years, some really great artwork. The past couple years, you did have to submit an eBird checklist. That is not the case this year. We just would like the adults to submit a list of all the birds that were seen during the month of May. Minimum species to observe to be entered for the prize is 10. So you'll want to try and see 10 different species of birds. And then again, you'll be entered into a drawing for a youth birding kit. All right, so why birds? Why are birds cool? Why do we have a bird month? Why do we care about birds? First and foremost, they are charismatic and charming. It's an enjoyable activity for people of all ages and abilities. You can go far and wide to search for birds, and you can also enjoy them right out of your kitchen window. It can be social or solitary. A lot of people like to go birding by themselves, and it's also really fun to get a big group of people or go to birding events. It pairs great with other hobbies, including photography, gardening, camping, woodworking. It fits pretty much into every hobby. Birds are everywhere. They provide a deeper sense of connection and appreciation for the local ecosystem. So again, anywhere you go, you're going to see birds, and being able to identify them and connect with them really helps you connect with the ecosystem as a whole. Birds are environmental indicators. Again, they're going to be found in all ecosystems, even urban ecosystems. and the presence or absence of birds can tell us a lot about the health of the environment. And the importance of community science. So we have the annual bird counts, submitting checklists on eBird, which scientists can use then to track populations and how birds are doing, and also opportunities like Nest Watch, where you can actually watch bird nests and track how many eggs are hatching and how many birds are fledging. All right. So now we're going to dive into some of the basics of birding. So these are hopefully some new terms that you can use and educate on. I hope everyone learned something new today. So some birding lingo. First, we have dimorphism. That is the difference between a male and a female within a species. And I do have a slide on this later, so I will show you an example of that. Flyway, which is a route commonly used by migrating birds traveling between breeding and wintering grounds. We here in Nebraska are in the central flyway. Eruption, and that means a large influx of birds of the same species. Lifer is the first time you see a bird species in your life. I hope everyone gets a lifer during Nebraska Bird Month this year. Mobbing is the joining together of a group of birds to chase a predator or intruder. If you have ever been out and heard lots of blue jays squawking or crows, they might be squawking at a hawk or an owl. That is mobbing. They're trying to get it away from their habitat, trying to get it away from them. Molting is the process of birds losing old feathers as they regrow new ones. A raptor is a carnivorous bird of prey, and that whole group includes eagles, hawks, falcons, owls, and vultures. They are all considered raptors. And vagrant, this is an individual bird that is found present outside of its usual range. All right, so those are some great birding terms to learn. And for our next slide, we'll go into the more fun side. So these are some terms you might hear when you're out birding. It's kind of like a new vocabulary to learn. First, we have warbler neck, and that's a painful crick in the neck from looking at birds high in the treetops. Elitist is a birder who never believes what you saw. Pish is a noise made by birders to attract birds closer to them. So if you ever see someone out in the field going psh, 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 they are not crazy. They're just trying to attract birds to them, and that is called pishing. A little brown bird, or the LBB, is any small brown songbird that is difficult to identify. This is usually flycatchers, sparrows, any of those little LBBs, little brown birds. The lawn carp or the cobra chicken, that is an urbanized goose that frequents city parks and picnic areas. Bins or binos, that is just the lazy way of saying binoculars. So if you ever hear anyone say, I need to grab my bins or my binos, they're just talking about their binoculars. All right. And most importantly, anytime you are out birding, we want to follow the American Birding Association's Code of Birding Ethics. Three very simple, very important rules here. Number one is respect and promote birds and their environment. Always be respectful of wildlife when you are observing it. Two is to respect and promote the birding community and its individual members. We always want to be welcoming and inclusive and respect everyone else. And three, respect and promote the law and the rights of others. This most commonly gets violated if there is a rare bird on someone's property. We don't want to trespass. We don't want to encroach on places we are not supposed to be. So we always want to respect and promote the law and the rights of others. All right, when you are starting to bird, there are some tools you can gather. Most important is the only tool you really need is yourself. These are great if you have them or can get them. They help enhance your experience, but first and foremost, the only tool you need is yourself. But some other tools that you can use are binoculars. They also have monoculars that are super easy to use. You can use them with one hand. Scopes, Those help you see birds really far away. These are great if you're at a beach or a lake, kind of scan in the sky or scan on the water. Field guides are fantastic. I have here my favorite field guide, which is the Sibley Guide to Birds. He illustrates the birds. A lot of people have a preference of whether they like illustrations or pictures. I really like the Sibley guides because he puts in-depth illustrations. He'll do the male and the female, them perching and in flight, bunch of different views of the birds. There's apps, that orange egret up there, that is the Audubon app. Super helpful. You can listen to bird songs. You can look up the bird right there in the app. And there's also a ton of great online resources. And a lot of those resources can be found on the Birding Bowl's website as well. And some of those online resources, the Audubon website is a fantastic resource to use. eBird, again, great community science tool where you can upload all of the birds that you've seen. Merlin can help you identify birds by sound. It's a free app you can download, press record when you're out in the field, and it will track all of the birds that are singing, and it will try and tell you what species of birds you are hearing. Larkwire is a great place to take short classes on birds. And iNaturalist is kind of like eBird, but more general. So eBird, you're just uploading the birds that you're seeing. iNaturalist, you can take photos of anything in nature, plants, insects, mammals, flowers, anything, and it will help you identify them, and birds as well. All right, another great thing to do while you're birding is trying to bring birding to your backyard. So some tips and tricks for that are feeders and nest boxes. Feeders can come in a wide variety. They have finch feeders that are usually a tall tube. Here we have an Oriole feeder. This picture is from my patio. They love grape jelly and oranges, so they make feeders specifically where you can put orange slices on the feeder, as you can see there, with a little cup of grape jelly. Planting native plants. The best bird feeder that you can have is native plants. There's flowers you can plant that will attract hummingbirds. Any berry bushes will attract cedar waxwings and robins and cardinals, and native plants are the best tool and resource that you could have to bring birds into your yard. Preventing window collisions is a big one. Window collisions are one of the leading causes of bird deaths. So any way you can prevent them is fantastic. They actually make stickers or lines that you can stick on your windows that will help deter birds from colliding with your windows. Preventing unnecessary predation. This is mostly about cats. If you have a cat, please, please, please try and keep it indoors. They are one of the other leading causes of bird deaths. They kill over 1 billion birds every year. And keep a yard list. This is a really fun thing to do. I have a list of all of the different species that have ever come to my bird feeder. People do that with their backyard as well, just any bird that they've seen at their house. Observe changes. So how are things changing every year? Do you have new birds coming? Do you have birds coming at different times? Do you only see certain species during certain times of the year? It's really cool to track those things and then see what happens in years to come. All right, so diving into the key characteristics for bird ID. So as you're getting into birding, these are the 4 things that are going to help you narrow down what you are seeing and what to look for. So there's size and shape, plumage, which is another great term, that is all of the feathers on the bird. Behavior and habitat, 4 really important things to look for, and we will dive into each of these. First is size. So here we have a general size chart. This is typically what you'll find in a field guide if you are looking for the bird. So is it going to be the smallest one here, which is a sparrow, or more robin sized, kind of getting a little more medium sized, crow size, a little larger, and then goose size. So If you see a bird, you're not really sure what it is, comparing it to these sizes here, maybe it was a little bit larger than the robin, a little bit smaller than a crow, that will help clue you in on species as well. All right, so here I have a couple more pictures from my suet feeders, and this is a great size comparison for two completely different species. These two species of woodpecker are pretty hard to identify because their plumage, or their feathers, are super, super similar. So there's only a few slight differences in their plumage. So size is actually the best way to identify these. So on the left, we have a downy woodpecker, and on the right, we have a hairy woodpecker. So if you notice, the hairy woodpecker is way bigger than the downy woodpecker. Another thing to watch out for is characteristics of the bird. So you'll see on the hairy woodpecker, the beak is much longer than the downy woodpeckers as well. So if you're seeing these birds not side by side, you just see one on a tree outside and you're wondering which it is, things like beak size. The hairy woodpecker's beak is about the length of its head. So its beak is about the same length as its head. The downy woodpecker's beak is about 3 lengths of its head. You could probably fit about 3 of their beaks in their head. So beak size is a really great thing to compare as well. Some other things comparing it to other objects in the environment, how long its legs are, and are certain features of the bird disproportionately large or small. These are all great to clue you in, help you get closer to a bird ID. The shape of the bird. So we have some different silhouettes here. I'll give you a couple seconds to kind of look over this, but you can also just Google bird shapes or bird silhouettes. These are great charts to keep, especially if you're birding and the birds are flying or they're against the sun. You'll mostly just see these silhouettes, and silhouettes are a great way to identify birds. All right, so now I have a little challenge. So go ahead, if you're using this in a classroom or as an educational tool, go ahead and use this as a little quiz. We'll see if we can get all of these birds identified. So first up, we'll look at this silhouette. Give you a couple seconds. Again, you can pause this, ask everyone what they think it is. There it is. And this is the great blue heron. All right, next one. This one's a little trickier. Again, feel free to pause this and use it as a quiz if you're using this as an educational tool. And that one is the northern cardinal. The crest and the short stubby beak give this one away. This one is a little trickier, a very common backyard bird and a great silhouette to learn. That is the American robin. The upright posture, the larger, longer beak, the shape of its breast and its tail, the way it's standing, those are all great things to look out for in the silhouette. All right, and then we have the barn swallow. The silhouette here is very characteristic of most swallows. So tree swallows, rough-winged swallows, barn swallows, purple martins. They have those very long wings, kind of like lack of a neck, very rounded head, and then a very short beak. Some other great shape things to look out for are their beaks and their feet. So bird feet can get really, really interesting. Obviously, we have the webbed foot for swimming. There are also some wading birds that have these kind of lobed feet that are kind of in between a walking foot and a swimming foot. Those birds are usually closer to the shore or walking on lily pads or aquatic vegetation. We have the standard foot for walking, perching, which is on most songbirds. Then we have the talons for seizing prey. And then woodpeckers have a really cool zygodactyl, it's called. So they have 2 and 2, not just for climbing. There's also a really unique raptor called the osprey that has a zygodactyl toe arrangement, and they use that to carry fish aerodynamically. And then the beak shape. So obviously we have ducks here. That's for filtering. Right, we have the longer beak shape there for probing in most sandpipers or shorebirds. They're going to be probing the sand or the mud, looking for insects. We have smaller songbirds with a thinner beak for gleaming insects off of leaves or trees. We have the cardinal, which has that short conical beak that's used for crushing seeds. If you see a larger hooked beak, that is usually a bird of prey or a raptor. That's going to be used for tearing meat. Then we also have the large woodpecker beaks, large and long, and they're used for drilling holes. Great shapes to look out for while you are birding. All right, so diving into plumage, one of the other key characteristics of identifying a bird, and going back to one of our birding terms, dimorphism, that is the difference between the male and the female. So plumage is a great thing to learn while you're birding. If I didn't know what a cardinal was and I was out birding, I would note that it has a lot of black around its beak and that it's bright red. Then when I looked up in the field guide, that would clue me in to this being a cardinal. Things get a little trickier when there is dimorphism. So cardinals are dimorphic, which means the male and the female have different plumages. So the female looks very similar. Silhouette here is great. She has the same silhouette as the male, same beak color. Still that black mask, it's just not as contrasted as the male. And then hints of red throughout, but she is mostly brown. Along with dimorphism, another thing with plumage is seasonal differentiation. So the bird on the left here, this is an American avocet. Both of them are American avocets. The bird on the left is in its breeding plumage, which means if you see this bird in the spring and the summer, it's going to have a bright orange head, blue legs, be much more contrasted, darker black in the wings, more of a white belly. Versus if you see this bird in the fall, when it is not breeding, it is in non-breeding plumage. So even though this is the same bird, there is seasonal differences in the plumage. So this bird gets almost like a gray, not as white, kind of buffy color, and not as contrasted. All right, another birding thing to look out for is behavior. This can be the posture of the bird, again, like the robin standing up tall in your yard, or the American bittern that's pictured here. They have incredible stripes that go from their neck down their belly, and this is to imitate reeds. So if you see a American bittern, they're going to stick their head straight up and they're going to sway back and forth, and they're going to pretend that they are cattails or reeds next to the water. Their movement, so a lot of the smaller songbirds are very erratic with their movement, whereas some birds are more solitary and still. Their flight pattern, this is most notable with woodpeckers that have an undulating flight pattern, which means they kind of bounce through the air. Great way to identify a woodpecker flying. Their feeding style, so again, thinking about the beak shape and how they are feeding. So is this bird pecking at wood? Is it sticking its beak down into the ground to get insects? Is it cracking seeds? How is its feeding style? This will help you clue into an ID. And is it flocking or solitary? Some birds will form big flocks. Other birds are going to be much more solitary, like the American bittern here. That is also a great thing to look out for when looking for a bird ID. And probably most important is what habitat you are in. This can help clue you into what bird species you are looking for, especially if you are looking to identify a sparrow and your looks very close to a bunch of other sparrows. Some sparrows are identifiable by which habitat they are in. So if you saw a little sparrow out in the prairie here, it might be a grasshopper sparrow versus if you saw it next to a lake or pond where it might be a song or swamp sparrow. So we have grasslands, deciduous forests, wetlands, the pine woods at the shoreline. Again, these are all birds have different habitats. Some are more general and can be found in a lot of different habitats, but some are more specific, and that can help clue you into what bird you are looking at. All right, and the last thing we have here are some educational uses for birding in the birding bowl. So one, it promotes observational skills. It teaches environmental awareness, encourages curiosity and inquiry, enhances scientific literacy. I hope you learn a lot of terms that you don't know, and I hope you learned some today as well. Integrates multiple disciplines. So we have math when we're counting or estimating populations. How many birds were in that flock that just flew over? We also have physics in how the birds are able to eat. There's a shorebird that will actually stick its beak in the water and open its beak, and it uses surface tension to draw the bead of water up to its mouth with a little aquatic insect inside. Super cool. So we have physics, mathematics, bunch of different disciplines, all within birding. It fosters outdoor learning, cultivates patience and resilience, facilitates cultural and historical understanding, and encourages conservation action. All super important things that can be done just by birding and really focusing on birding and learning the different birds and all about the environment around you. All right, so that is it for this webinar today. Again, go ahead and scan that QR code to learn all about the Birding Bowl. All your registration links are in there, any other information that you would need. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you this May out on the trails.